Okay. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the last keynote of today's Birmingham Tech Week, day 2, which of course is all around people and culture. And we've got a fantastic session to end on. We have the fabulous Purpose Collective, who are going to talk, of course, about purpose, but also the secret weapon in tech, which is very intriguing. So I'm not just going to introduce them just yet. I'm just going to go through a few bits and bobs, and then we'll get to introducing the fantastic Purpose Collective. So of course, the week is being run in association with Tech Nation, the West Midlands Growth Company, and Department for International Trade. Big thank you to those guys for being a part of the week and helping us with all the content, but also the work they do across the West Midlands and the entire UK in supporting kind of tech entrepreneurs in general, and the wider economy as well, but also for what they do internationally in terms of helping businesses export internationally, but also encouraging inward investment as well. So thank you to all those organisations. And of course, thank you to our wonderful sponsors, which the week wouldn't be possible without you. NatWest, who are our headline sponsor this year, but all the work they do across the region, especially around their Entrepreneur Accelerator, supporting entrepreneurs and tech advocates as well. And then the other sponsors, Copper, BGSS, Sidetrade, and BMET. But of course, today, as I mentioned, is People and Culture Day, and we've had a fantastic lineup of speakers throughout the day, and this is being supported by Culture Group. So I'm just going to say a few words about Culture Group to give you a bit of background. So Culture Recruitment are a dynamic and rapidly expanding Birmingham-based agency. Founded only 3 years ago by Jamie Wills and Lawrence Sidwell, following extensive careers working for large global recruitment businesses. They share and mirror Birmingham Tech Week's passionate ethos and values in adding value and giving back to the community. And this helps, of course, all of Birmingham and the West Midlands. Culture Recruitment has extensive and proven experience in the tech sector in providing sales, marketing, and tech roles, as well as running the largest completely free best practice groups across the Midlands. But more than anything, I love what Culture Group do in the community. So Cure Leukemia named them their best partner and awarded them that for all the work they do with that fantastic organisation. And they also work very, very closely with Suited for Success, which is a charity helping kind of disadvantaged people and people wanting to get back into work by providing them with suits and clothes, which I think is a fantastic initiative. So yeah, thank you to Culture Group and all they do for supporting this week and this day. And then to our kind of 2020 partners from across the kind of private and public sector, I've given a shout out to kind of lots of them through the week. So today I'm going to give a shout out to Enterprise Nation, because Enterprise Nation do so much work and have supported so many entrepreneurs through this hard period of time. So thank you to Enterprise Nation for supporting us. So yeah, all that's left for me to do really is introduce the Purpose Collective. And now, fun fact about the Purpose Collective, they've never actually met. So this is one of the kind of positive stories to emerge from the pandemic. So they are Chris Blackwell, who's the founder and CEO of Purpose-Led Performance. We've got Sarah Rozenthuler, who's a founder and CEO of Bridgework Consulting Limited, and Alberto Gonzalez Otero, who is a founder and chief purpose officer at Just on Purpose, which is a great brand name there. So I'm going to hand over to you to kind of introduce yourself. So let's start with Sarah. Sarah, if you can just kind of introduce yourself.
Okay, so hello everybody. I'm delighted to be with you. I'm in the West Midlands myself, so I'm here in Shropshire. My background's as a business psychologist, and I go into different organisations and I coach leadership teams, and that sometimes includes working with tech directors in a digital innovation team, helping them to be more on purpose and have better dialogue. And I'm delighted to be here with my colleagues at the Purpose Collective, Alberto and Chris, and I'll hand across to Alberto.
Hi everyone. So I'm, as I normally say, the exotic one. I'm from Spain originally, but I live in the Netherlands, where I'm based for the last almost 13 years. I have a sales and sales leadership background, and mostly in tech. Actually, around 11 years in software, more specifically software as a service companies. And now I have my own business, and I help organizations, teams, and leaders uncovering their purpose and being more purpose driven. So that's what I do. And now over to you, Chris.
Thank you, Alberto. It's great to be here, everybody. I'm Chris Blackwell. I'm alongside Alberto and Sarah. I'm one of the co-founders of the Purpose Collective. I'm also the scale-up lead for Birmingham Tech Week. I'm a fellow at the Royal Society of Arts, and actually for my day job, I am the CEO of a consultancy called Purpose-Led Performance. And we work with scale-ups, and we focus on performance and growth. Over the last year, we've worked with over 100 organizations. And what we're really about is dissolving that perceived conflict between being profit-driven and performance-driven, and being purpose-driven, doing the right thing for your customers, for your colleagues, and for the society and the world. So really my big vision is to dissolve that perceived conflict, because I think actually purpose holds the secret to high-performing businesses. Yanis talked about Alberto and Sarah and I, and we've never met in person, but we formed a group and formed the Purpose Collective. And our story is Alberto and I connected over LinkedIn. We started similar businesses at a similar time, and we were talking to each other. And just before lockdown, we had planned that maybe we could do an event together. And we said, well, two of us is probably not enough. We should look to get somebody else. And somebody had suggested I get in touch with Sarah, because she's got a great book, which is now out, called Powered by Purpose. And so originally we were talking about doing an event, and then lockdown hit before we actually got to meet and plan it. But we had a session in the diary. So we kept that session and we caught up. And we said, well, obviously we can't do the session, but we had such a good conversation. We said, why don't we catch up at the same time next week? And what happened through the first sort of 8 to 12 weeks of lockdown is we caught up every week, and we checked in with one another. And over that period of time, we became friends. And it was around about the end of May, we said, actually, maybe we should do something together. So we planned just to do a small online event. We called it Conversations About Purpose. We thought we'd get about 30 people. And in the intervening over the next 3 weeks, we had about 600 people sign up, and from all over the world, from the US, from Africa, all over Europe, Asia, Australia. We ran that series. We did 3 sessions. We repeated it, and we had similar success. And we thought, well, actually, maybe we should do something together. And so the Purpose Collective was born. And what we do is every 2 weeks, we have a conversation about purpose. And we shine the spotlight on people who are doing really good work in the world of business, and bringing purpose and bringing it to life. So that's who we are. And what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about purpose on 3 levels. We're going to talk about purpose at an individual level. We're going to talk about it at a team level, and we're going to talk about it at the organizational level as well. And I'm going to start off, and I'm going to talk about things at the organizational level. And what I'm going to talk about, 2 things I really want to focus on: what purpose is and what purpose isn't, and why and how does it work to drive performance in business. Now, really extraordinary things happen in an organization if you can align personal purpose, individual purpose, and collective purpose. But I want to start with a reflection actually on Bruce Daisley's keynote this morning. So I don't know if anybody saw it. It was actually a fantastic session. And Bruce actually is a bit of a purpose skeptic, because at the end of the session, somebody said, so Bruce, what do you think about purpose in business? And he said, well, I think it's been misappropriated. He referenced the Simon Sinek talk, start with why. And he said, well, actually, I don't think that's enough. I think actually we need to talk more about how. And I've just seen Tim say it was him who asked that question. Thank you, Tim. And actually, I've got to say, I agree with most of what Bruce said. Purpose isn't statements on the wall. Purpose isn't a branding exercise about how you present your best self to the world. True purpose is about what you do, how you do it, and why it matters. It's about the soul of your organization, and it's about a consistency between how you present yourself internally and externally and how your business behaves in the world. Now, I do quite a lot of work with organizations, and that work generally is about performance and growth, but I always start with purpose. And rather than looking externally or rather than treating it as a branding or marketing exercise, what we do is we go into the business and we ask a couple of questions. And I'm going to share those questions with you. And I'm going to encourage you, if you are interested in exploring purpose, that you go back into your businesses, whether you're the leader or not, and you ask these questions in your business. Now, the first question that I ask, that we go into businesses and we ask everybody in the business and we say, when do you feel proudest to work in this business? When do you feel proudest? And actually that gives you great insight into what the true purpose of that business is. We also ask the flip question and we say, when do you feel least proud to work here? And that gives you a great insight into what is getting in the way of that purpose realizing, that business realizing its purpose. The other question we ask them 3 questions to think about. We say, can you explain to us what you do, how you do it, and why it matters? Why it matters. And again, if you go into your business and you speak to people in your business and you ask them those questions, that is when you're going to start to get underneath the skin of what the business is in your purpose, in your business. Now, I'm going to share screen now, and I'm going to invite you to think about a couple of success stories in the tech world, in the West Midlands. And there is a lot of research out there about purpose-driven businesses outperforming those that are not. And I'm not going to try and go through any of that research. Actually, I want to talk more about how and why being purpose-driven makes you successful. So this first quote here is from Steve Jobs. And, you know, whether you love or hate Steve Jobs, whether you love or hate Apple, you have to admire the success that they've got. And this quote actually, so what's interesting is Steve Jobs never talked about purpose. But this quote here isn't about his organizational purpose. It's about his personal purpose. And he was talking to students at Stanford University. And I love the quote, the only way to do great work is to love what you do. And a big part of the success of Apple is the fact that Steve Jobs aligned his personal purpose with the purpose of the teams that he built and put around him, with the purpose of his organization. Now, another Steve Jobs quote here. This is from 1997 when Steve Jobs had just become Apple CEO for a second time. And again, he doesn't talk about purpose. What he talks about is Apple's core value, and that their core value is that they believe that the people with passion can change the world for the better. And the quote, the second part of the quote, those people that are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones that actually do, was the inspiration behind the first advertising campaign that Apple had done for a number of years, which is referenced on the right-hand side of that. And so Steve Jobs didn't talk about Apple being a purpose-driven organization. He didn't talk about saving the planet or any of that, but actually he did talk about the core value of the organization and how that aligned in him, his teams, and the people around him. Let's go a little bit closer to home now. Gymshark, 7 years ago, they didn't exist. This year, they just became a $1.45 billion organization. Ben Francis, local lad, went to Aston University. He's founder of Gymshark, now a very rich man. But actually, I would recommend everybody go and look at Ben Francis's YouTube channel, because he talks really openly and really transparently about the Gymshark journey and why they've been successful. And actually, again and again and again, he talks about the defined purpose that Gymshark has, which is about inspiring people to improve themselves physically and mentally. But he also talks about what they do, how they do it, and why it matters. Now, with the last couple of minutes for my section before I hand over to Sarah is I want to share a few reflections from my career and experience about why being purpose-driven works for organizational performance and how it works. So let's get practical. But first of all, this picture here is a picture of man on the moon. And there's a very famous story about JFK going to a NASA facility. He was going to give, I think, a TV address. And in the back room, he bumped into the janitor, the cleaner. And he said, I'm Jack Kennedy. Nice to meet you. Tell me, what do you do here? And he said, Mr. President, I'm helping put man on the moon. So that was the janitor at NASA. And actually, the first thing about purpose, if you truly are a purpose-driven organization, purpose becomes the North Star for your organization. It provides clarity internally for people working in your organization about what it is you do and why it matters. The other thing that it does is it creates alignment. Now, a lot of organizations are completely misaligned. You have sales and operations fighting, you have different teams and departments fighting. You know, the organizations are not aligned, and that harms performance. But actually, when you're purpose-driven, what that does is it aligns everybody together. And that becomes a glue that combines the culture, the talent, and the company goals into a really powerful force. Now, the third thing that purpose does is it creates passion, and it harnesses passion, both internally amongst your employees and your customers. But I agree with Bruce Daisy this morning. Purpose is not enough to drive performance in an organization. It is not a panacea. It's not going to solve all of your problems. But actually, I always talk about purpose first. Purpose by itself is not enough. From my experience, so I was in an organization called Ingeus. I spent 10 years there. I went in a frontline role and I progressed to become deputy chief executive. And we grew from a £4 million business to a £120 million business over those 10 years. And what I experienced and what I subsequently put into play in other organizations that experienced similar or even greater growth was actually it's about how you align purpose with ambition, culture, and talent. So purpose, as I said on the previous slide, provides clarity, it provides alignment, and it harnesses passion. But it's the ambition that harnesses the passion. It's the ambition that focuses that passion on the achievement of a goal. But without culture, you don't get the right behaviors. You don't turn that ambition and that passion into action. Culture provides identity. It facilitates speed. It creates a language, and it continually reinforces the purpose. But actually, if you don't have talent in your organization, then you're not going to go anywhere. And so actually, you need to get talent that is aligned with your culture. You need to get talent that aligns with your ambition. But you need to give it the space to grow. And you get a virtuous circle. If you get talent into your organization and you align your purpose, your ambition, and your culture, and you start to grow, that growth creates space for that talent to grow. Now, the final thought, I've read a lot in the newspapers recently about, can we afford to be purpose-driven? And is there space for sentiment in business? Is business going to retrench and just focus on profits as we go into, I guess, the economic troubles that follow on from COVID-19. Now, this research from the KPMG CEO Outlook, I guess it was really reassuring for me, because actually what it demonstrated is that purpose is actually helping CEOs and is becoming increasingly important. So I'm going to stop talking now, and I'm going to stop sharing. Just very quickly, I'm Chris Blackwell, member of the Purpose Collective. Please connect with me if you want to on Twitter and LinkedIn. And I'm going to hand over to Sarah now.
Okay, thank you very much, Chris. And as Chris has said, purpose operates, we could say, at three main levels: the organisational that Chris has been talking to. I'm going to come on and talk about purpose at a team level, and then Alberto will talk with us about purpose at a more personal level. And teams, well, you've probably all had an experience or many experiences of working in a team. And as I take you through this talk, you might want to think about what's your best experience of working in a team? What's your worst experience? And what role, if any, did purpose play? And so, as I said in my introduction, I go into different organizations and coach teams. And part of that coaching involves looking at the shared purpose of the team. So just as Chris has done, I'm going to share some slides with you and talk you through this. So we're still here with our theme around purpose as the secret weapon in tech. And teams, well, they're, you could say, the most potent unit of change in an organisation. An individual leader, sure, they can achieve a lot, but actually, if you've got a high performing team, that team can really achieve excellence way beyond an individual can working alone. And so here we've got an observation made by the anthropologist Margaret Mead many years ago. You may have heard it before. Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. And I think this same observation really applies in organisations. And when you've got a team that's working well, when you've got a team that coalesce around a shared purpose, there's a real buzz in that team. So this is a team I worked with pre-COVID, it has to be said, real buzz in the room. And that buzz was there in particular when they landed on a common purpose. And so if we look at the definition briefly of a high-performing team, what you'll see here are a number of features. So there's complementary skills in the team, there's a set of performance goals, they hold one another mutually accountable, and also they have a shared purpose. So you could say that the purpose is like the beating heart of the team. And when that's present and when it's clear, it pulls the whole team together. And without a shared purpose, things can become quite problematic. So this is Peter Senge, who is a leadership guru, thought leader, communicating with Peter Hawkins, who's a professor of leadership at Henley Business School. It's amazing how often you come across teams with an average intelligence of over 120, but the team collectively functions at an IQ of about 60. And I have to say, I see this pattern quite frequently in my work. So going in and you've got all these very talented individuals, maybe they're tech directors, and actually when it comes around to them pulling together, then you can sometimes get a case that's not only that the whole isn't greater than the sum of parts, it's not even matching the sum of parts. And so as a psychologist, this has always interested me. How do you unlock performance and potential in a team setting? And there are challenges, and what I'm just going to point to briefly here is some research done in the tech industry in the States. And it was a survey done by Boston Consulting Group a couple of years ago amongst tech companies. And what they found was that whilst a high percentage of people might say, yeah, my company has a clear and compelling purpose, when they asked the supplementary question, whether the company would turn away from a profitable opportunity that conflicted with the purpose, you can see the difference in the percentage scores. And Chris talked about this earlier, that it's not just about having a clear purpose, it's got to be lived and it's got to guide day-to-day decision making, it's got to unify stakeholders, and people need to believe in it and put their backs behind it. And I think when we get gaps, as we're seeing in this disconnect here, I think that's what gives rise to purpose cynicism, purpose fatigue, people being very skeptical about purpose. And I think there are all sorts of good reasons for that. So what I'm interested in as a practitioner on the corporate pitch is what are some practical tools that are going to help leadership teams navigate this territory so we don't end up with these disconnects and the cynicism that therefore arises. And so one of the ways we could look at the development of a team is in the following way. So often teams I work with at the beginning of the journey are in this sort of fixed leader, single fixed leader work group. The leader's often at the centre of the action. They might have a strong connection with each one of the team members, but the connections between the different team members are weak. So you've got this kind of hub and spoke dynamic happening. And what we're transitioning to, what will make the team better performing, is something that looks like this, where we've actually got a purpose-led collaborative team. The leader absolutely occupies a unique position in the team still, but there's real connectivity amongst the team members. There's good quality, authentic dialogue. And we're seeing here that the team purpose is really that beating heart of the team. That's what people are gathering around. So it looks simple, laid out in two diagrams like this. This is quite a journey, in my experience, for a team to go on, and it's absolutely doable. And there are obstacles along the way. Many teams don't take the time to think together and really reflect on what their purpose is. Many teams can be out of touch with their full range of stakeholders, and there can be really important clues in what the stakeholders want that help crystallize the purpose. And sometimes I think there's a tendency to see purpose as a bit of an intellectual exercise. And again, Chris spoke earlier about the emotional connection with purpose, and that's absolutely key to unlocking it. And so practical tools, this is a plug for my book because it's full of different tools that leadership teams can use, and I'm going to cover just one of them with you. And so this is one way we could look at team purpose. And with some of the teams I work with, we have a conversation using this as a lens. So the team often has a commission purpose. That's why the team was brought into being, what they're authorized to do. Some teams have an espoused purpose. So that might be what they say they're about. It may or may not be written down. Then there's the actual purpose of the team. So that's the lived day-to-day reality of the team, regardless of what it says it's doing. And then there's, in the North, Chris talked about the North Star, the true most compelling purpose of the team that picks up on the team's best future potential. And so what might this look like? So I've got a slide here where it just fills it out for each one of those 4 levels of purpose. So a commission purpose, many leadership teams, for example, would say, actually, we're here to make money and to manage and grow the business. The espoused purpose might be, actually, we're here to meet our KPIs, provide the board with updates. One team I worked with said, actually, when they stopped and reflected on their purpose, they said, really, what we're about is feeding the beast. That was their phrase, by actually constantly having to provide the board with update reports and making presentations. And we don't actually really have time to do anything more strategic than that. And the true most compelling purpose, it might be, one team I worked with said, we're here as a kind of rogue unit to disrupt the business, share success stories, inspires others to take bold actions that really benefit stakeholders. And so this purpose diamond that I co-created with a colleague, Ed Rowland, is just one way of unpacking purpose and having a conversation that will hopefully help the team land in that place of having a true North Star, and also have an honest conversation about maybe there's a disconnect sometimes on that horizontal level between the espoused and the actual. And finally, I'm just going to end with the benefits of a compelling true purpose. And just to bring these up, and Chris spoke to similar benefits. It helps create alignment and accountability. Writing it down also helps a team to evolve their purpose. I've worked with teams who 2 years down the line have gone and reviewed their purpose. If it's written down, you can engage stakeholders in a dialogue about the purpose, and it can be one way of getting into more innovative thinking and building resilience during these unsettling times, because a purpose casts a future direction and helps everybody pull together. So that's purpose at a team level, and I'm going to hand over to Alberto to talk about it at an individual level.
Thank you, Sarah, and as usual, like very, very interesting, and Chris as well. I'm going to talk about the individual purpose, and of course, everything is important, and there needs to be a link. But I find that probably for most people, the most difficult part is that individual purpose. It was my case, and that's the reason why I started my company. So I always say, I studied something I didn't want to study. I started working in sales, selling encyclopedias door to door on the streets. And I never actually liked sales, and I stayed there for like 20 years almost. And I liked some components of selling, which for me was, helping others with what I was selling to them, providing them, with value. But for every company I worked for, nobody told me that. Nobody told me what value they were actually, as a company, providing to customers. We were all about making money and, achieving targets and KPIs, and what just Sarah mentioned, right? The supposed purpose and these numbers, all about numbers and reports. So during my
Well, I think we might have lost Alberto temporarily, so hopefully he's going to rejoin us.
I think that's the first time that's happened, actually.
Okay.
I'm surprised, because obviously doing it over the internet, yeah, it's always kind of a possibility. So I'm going to drop Alberto a note, but Chris, Sarah, if you want to kind of carry on the conversation amongst yourselves, and then what I'll do is kind of drop Alberto a note, and then if we can't get him back, we can go to kind of Q&A.
Yep. Should we, Sarah? Oh,
I'm
Alberto,
back.
you're back.
Sorry.
Okay.
Sorry. Yes, when we talk about tech, for a break. So, anyway, I was saying, like, when I was a manager, I made it, and I was part of the leadership teams at different companies, startups, technology, software. And, my day-to-day was basically being on meetings that most of them were unnecessary, looking at reports and KPIs, and not actually doing what I believe was my job, which was supporting my people to be successful and to be happy. So that was also frustrating for me. So I struggled to find my own purpose, to uncover it, because it's not something you find, you have it already, but you need to realize. And that, through some inspiration, I was able to make an exercise, a kind of a methodology to help me uncover my own purpose and start my own company. So that's what I do right now. And what I'll try to do or to share with you something that I normally do in some hours with teams and people and leaders, but I'll try to do it quite faster here, at least to spark some inspiration. And so I'm sharing my screen. I think you see it. This is, by the way, this is where I'm from, a nice place in Spain, north of Spain, beautiful place. That's one of my favorite beaches there. So there are 10 types of people in this world, those who understand binary and those who don't. And this is supposed to be a joke. So if you didn't get it right at the beginning, well, maybe you have a challenge because you're working in tech and you're working with tech people. So what I wanted to say with this is that, just running a company, if you're a leader or just working at a company, it is challenging at times because you have all sort of different people and, profiles. And for some people, some things are more important than for others. And it is always a challenge, no matter if you're in tech or not. When you're in tech, I think the challenge is, it gets just bigger. And why? Because, well, I remember myself working for an American company called Log Me In. I was there for almost 6 years, and our development center, this was an American company, and the development was all based in Hungary, in Budapest. So I remember going there, and just getting to the office, and you just feel the atmosphere. You talk to people, you see how they talk and behave, and it's a totally separate world, So it was difficult to really kind of understand how they think, and how they like to work and to work with each other, So it is very important that in any kind of business, what drives people, what gives them energy, but especially when you are working in tech, I think it's extremely important. I don't know about you, but maybe some teams here have also their development teams, if we are talking about software, in places like Romania, Bulgaria, Ukraine, or in India. And that's pretty normal. And, managing the difference between cultures, but also the difference between what matters to them, it is key to run a successful business. So did you ever ask your people, if you are leading a team or your company, or your teammates, why do they work there? Why did they work for you? Normally we don't ask this question. We just assume why they work for us. And, let me tell you one thing. If you think the answer is money, one, you have a high probability of being wrong. And two, if it really is money, then you have a problem, because there will be always someone else that will pay them more to work for them, right? So it has to be something else. And this is something that I asked, the people, the teams that I work with, to dig a bit more into the individual purpose. I asked them, what are you grateful for? I do this with small teams, with big teams, also online. I did it with hundreds of people, and I always get the same results, no matter what industry, no matter what country. These are the results I get. So health, family, love, friends, again, health, education. So as you can see, the word money is not there. The word career, a bigger car, bigger house, it's nothing there. And when I asked them, okay, do you realize that most people are actually chasing things on a daily basis that aren't here? So basically aren't the most important things for them. And that normally takes, something in their mindset, and they start to think about purpose as well. The second thing I normally say to them is that they're going to die. and I also tell them I'm going to die too. And so far, nobody died in one of my workshops, which is, that helps. But I also tell them that, that's the reason why they need to leave, right? And as Chris said, you got to love what you are doing, and you have two options. You either try to do something that you love doing, but you are not doing right now, or start loving something that you are doing now, but you don't love it yet. And we can talk about this a bit farther, but why I talk about death? Well, this was an inspiration. I came across this research from Bronnie Ware, an Australian nurse. She worked at the palliative care, at taking care of people dying basically during the last weeks of their lives. And she wrote a book which is called The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying. The number one regret people facing death was I wish I had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me. So to me, this really translates into I wish I had followed my purpose and do what I really wanted to do. And this is my own experience. I realized maybe 20 years later, but soon enough, I hope, still to enjoy and to enjoy the rest of my life. But there are many people that feel unhappy, frustrated with their jobs, unfulfilled, but they keep on going because status, money, what others could think about them, and they know they don't love that. They know they would love to do something else, but they are afraid of actually taking that step and making that change. So this is the second question that I asked them as well. If you knew you couldn't fail, what would you start doing? And look, some people may think like, yeah, but if I'm the leader of a team and I ask them these questions, they will leave. And, I tell them, look, they will leave anyway. Maybe some people will leave immediately. Some people will leave in 2 years or in 5 years. But actually your role as a leader of a team or a company is to help people get better or take that opportunity that you are giving them to work with you, to work at your company, to learn the skills, to get the experience, to get better so that they are more prepared to get to where they really want to get in the future. And maybe that's with you, but maybe it's not. And that's fine. If they leave, those weren't the right folks to be working at your company, and then they leave the space for people. And when you hire, you can ask these questions as well. So you hire based on purpose and values, and rather than just experience and skills. So one of the also sources of inspiration I've got during the years, during my own journey, was the Blue Zones research. And this was a research done by National Geographic together with some other institutions to find where in the world people live longer. So they found these blue spots, and they put in a world map with a market, a blue market. So that's why it's called this way. There is a book about it, also very interesting. But basically, they went there and they realized that in all these remote places from each other, they had 9 common factors that they believe help these people live longer. But they also realized that it wasn't only living longer, they also had less diseases. They were healthier than people anywhere else in the world. And also they seemed happier, And you have things like move naturally, they kept active, they had a community, they put family first, drank a bit of alcohol every day, but not too much. All the things that they were eating, less meat, all this. But one thing, which I personally believe that helps with the other 8, is that they all knew pretty clear their own purpose. And, there was a word, sorry, I went backwards, but there was a word in Okinawa that inspired me as well, and was ikigai. So there's no literal translation for this, but, people translate this as like the reason why you wake up in the morning. So just do a test, go to the local supermarket and start asking people, hey, why do you wake up in the morning? What do they would tell you, right? Or what's your purpose? Even more clear. Yeah, most people wouldn't have an answer. And people, for example, here in Okinawa, in Japan, or in Costa Rica, or in California, in this little community where they actually found out that people live longer and happier, they immediately have an answer for you. They wake up in the morning, they have a purpose and a reason to do that. And that drives the whole life, actually. And normally it's attached to others. So for these people, this 102-year-old man was teaching this martial art to younger generations. For this grandma was to be strongly, strong enough to hold her granddaughter on her lap. And for this guy was fishing 3 times a week for his community. They get together and they support each other. But that's what purpose is. It starts with you, with yourself, with who you are. But it's also, what do you do? What's your impact to others? And that's, especially in tech, is very, very important, because you can make a huge positive and negative impact. And we're seeing on the news every day, the social dilemma, this it's on Netflix. I watched it the other day. You can do amazing things, but also some things that are not that good for others or for the world. So that's your responsibility, but it needs to be attached to what matters to you the most. And this is an exercise. This is the exercise that I do with my customers. And basically, that some questions that I already shared with you, also what makes me happy, what drives me to flow. And then the key to purpose, to understand what your purpose is or your ikigai is what you love doing. That's the priority number one. Start with this. What you love doing, what you are good at. That's also very important. And then what the world needs, what your impact to others, what's, do you care about the climate change? Do you care about, any other problems in the world, education, whatever? And then at the bottom is what you can get paid for. And I always say this is the least important one, because you can get paid for pretty much everything. The only question mark is how much you get paid. But I can assure you, based on my own experience as well, if you start following your purpose and taking steps into that direction, you will eventually be profitable, make money as an individual, as a team, and as an organization. So Chris, maybe, or Sarah, you want to mention something again about our conversations about purpose?
I'm happy to say a few words. Thank you very much, Alberto. And I think Chris said earlier, we run fortnightly events, and we've done 8 so far. They're free as well. So they're interactive. We use the breakout rooms. So it's a way of having a conversation about purpose. It's a way of extending your network, getting some fresh energy and inspiration. And we've also started inviting guest speakers. And the next guest speaker next week on the 21st of October, we've got 2 people coming from BP, Joe Alexander, David Bickerton, who are talking about the journey BP is going on, having announced their new purpose in February. And the series continues after that throughout the autumn. So Chris, is there anything you'd like to add to the conversations piece?
No, just that it'd be good for people to join us. It's always it's really positive, really inspirational, and we always enjoy those sessions, and we meet people from all over the world.
Yeah, and they can connect with us on LinkedIn, but also search on Eventbrite, conversations about purpose, and then you will find all our events, and they're free. You can just sign up and join us.
Okay, some time for some questions, I think.
Sure.
Cool. So the first one is from Sharon. What's the best, worst purpose you've heard? So the best or worst purpose you've heard? The next one's even more challenging, so I'll pre-warn.
Okay.
I can go first, maybe with the best one, or one of the best ones. I think every purpose is good, or most of them are. But from Patagonia, we use it as a reference as well. Many times, you go to their website, they have, "We are in business to save our home planet." That's it. So that's probably the best one. I'm looking at the worst one now. I'm thinking.
Yeah, I think I can't pick out a particular worst one, but there's lots that are out there where it's obviously fake. There's obviously a disconnect between what the organization actually does and what they're saying their purpose is. And so there's loads out there. And so I think that talks to the point about, purpose is only really powerful as a tool when it's real and it's authentic.
And I would add to that, I think one of the purpose-led organizations that's often pointed to is Southwest Airlines in the States. And their purpose it's something like to provide friendly, low-cost travel that connects people with what matters most in their lives. And there's some great videos that they've done that show how that purpose really influences interactions on the front line between staff and customers, and getting people on flights in difficult situations so they can go and see family members. So that would be one example.
Very good, very, very good examples as well. And now we've got a question from Fatuma. What's your purpose? And I guess that's directed at each and every one of you. I'm
Ah,
sure you've heard that before.
Should I go first?
Go for it, Chris.
So my purpose is round about business, and my purpose is working with businesses and supporting them to understand that there is an alternative way to do business that doesn't involve screwing your customers, screwing your staff, screwing the planet. Actually, and it goes back to that point of the perceived conflict between either being successful at business or being purpose driven. So my purpose is to kind of bring the message and to work with organizations to say, actually, there isn't a conflict. The best way for you to be high performing, to scale up successfully, is to get super clear on your purpose and then let that drive everything that you do. And so, I put a post out last week. 4.5 years ago, I quit a really well-paid CEO job, and I walked away, and I didn't know what I was going to do. And it took me 3 years to figure out what I wanted to do. And I earn a lot less money these days, but I'm so much happier, because actually what I'm doing every single day is I'm working with businesses and I'm helping them actually resolve that perceived conflict and do better for themselves, but also do better for their staff, their communities, and for the world.
Fantastic. Thanks, Chris.
I'm happy to respond as well. So there's a clue in the name of my consulting company, which is Bridgework. And so I'm all about building bridges, and I'll just cover two main ways. So one is building bridges through better communication, whether that's between individuals in a team or between different teams in an organization. It might be between sales and marketing. So Bridgework in that way. And then the other sense is building a bridge to a better future. And I think that's again where purpose really plays a part. And so many sectors, I think, are having to re-examine their purpose. I mean, I mentioned Southwest Airlines, and here we are in the context of climate change, climate crisis. So many organizations, this is what we're seeing with BP, are having to evolve their purpose to adapt to our changing world. And I want to work with leaders and leadership teams to help them on that journey and have the conversations they need to have.
Thanks, Sarah. Great.
The last one, I'll keep it short, but yeah, my purpose is to bring purpose and ikigai to businesses, to organizations, leaders and teams, and people in general, because in the end, an organization is made out of people, and that's my goal, so that they actually start doing things in a different way, thinking about the impact they're making and trying to make a positive impact to others. So little by little, we build a better world between all of us.
Oh, that's really good. Yeah, I think it is about that collaboration and all coming together, for sure. And then we've got a question here from Danielle. So first of all, she says, like, really valuable presentation. So thank you. Thought I'd kind of shout out some love there from the audience. I recently started to believe in my purpose after I got a coach. What's your thought about coaching?
Sarah, do you wanna?
Oh, I'm happy to respond, and I'm just going to have to own my own bias in a way, because I work as a coach. But I've also been a recipient of coaching over the years myself. And I actually think, had I not had coaching myself, I don't think I would have cut it as a freelancer for the nearly 20 years that I've been doing it, because it's somewhere to go both for inspiration and somebody drawing your own wisdom and courage and boldness out of you. And it's also somewhere to go and download, because my experience working on the corporate pitch is it can get tough. Sometimes there can be all sorts of setbacks and disappointments, and a bit like an athlete or a football player has then got to pick themselves up quite quickly so that they can carry on performing. A good coach and a safe space where you can go and process things, talk about your vulnerabilities, is really valuable. So I'm all for coaching.
And I'm not a coach, but I'm coaching people because they just come to me and they think, hey, can you help me, because I don't know what I want to do next. And I just share my exercise, I do it with them, and I coach them. And yeah, I think it is extremely helpful for some people. You need to be ready to be coached as well. And then once you start coaching, you will realize, that happened to me. At the beginning, I thought I wanted to be a coach, individual coach. Then I realized, okay, I don't want this to be the core of my own business. I enjoy even more working with groups of people. So that's why I focus on organizations and teams and leaders more. But it is something to try out, and also to learn, and can help you not only if you want to be a coach, but also if you want to be a leader at a company, or if you want to have your own company about something else. So it is very valuable.
Yeah, and I would echo that. I think kind of as someone that's been a recipient of coaching, I think at the right times it can be very valuable, actually. Yeah, it is. If you're striving for high performance, and you will inevitably get times when you dip and you need kind of someone to kind of pick you up again and put you back on the right path. So yeah, and yeah, someone's put there actually, they love that particular quote, draw your own wisdom, boldness and courage out of you. Yeah, very, very true. The last question I think we've got time for is one from Chiara, who asks how to see if a purpose is fake.
Okay. Well, I would say go and speak to people in the organization. So firstly, ask them if they know what it is. So yeah, frequently you'll find that people are like, I don't know. And then if they do know what it is, kind of ask people, well, what's that like? You kind of get eye rolls, or and so for me, it's all about the authenticity and are people walking the walk and talking the talk in the organization, and does it go all the way through? It's very easy to see through it when that's not the case.
Yeah. Sorry.
Alberto, you go.
Now, I always say the same thing. We are seeing right now with purpose what happened with mission, vision, and values like 10, 12 years ago, when some people actually believe in that, some companies believe in that, in leadership teams, and they start to implement that, to think about those and actually state them on the wall and doing things about that. And then the rest of the companies kind of felt that, we have to do it as well. We have to have values and vision and mission and all that. And that was the fake part, right? But they put those words on the wall even, but they didn't do anything about it. And my colleagues here mentioned this earlier. And that actually creates the opposite results, because you create more frustration, because when you talk to people there, and I actually work with many companies as clients, big companies in their onboarding process. So basically they share the values and all that. And when you talk to people there, it's like, yeah, I don't see, we really don't have any values here, or what's the mission? I don't really even know. With purpose is happening the same thing. It is a trendy thing. But yeah, I totally believe that when people join because that company has a purpose, in the longer term, that those people will be in some cases able to change that company and to make it a bit more purpose driven.
Completely. Sarah, have you got any final thoughts there?
Yeah, a couple of quick thoughts. How do you tell if it's fake or authentic? One is that if it's a true purpose, it contributes to long-term well-being of people and the planet. That for me is the real litmus test. And the second thing would be that purpose, if it's authentic, will guide day-to-day decision making. And therefore, there might be times where you say, no, we're not going to go after that opportunity. We're not going to go and do that piece of work, even if it's really profitable, because it's not in line with our purpose. And I know I've turned work down with certain clients on that basis. It didn't resonate. It wasn't going to be meaningful. And so that turning down, can also reveal, I think, whether somebody is on purpose or not.
Yeah, I think that's kind of a kind of key point there. We went for an exercise recently at Birmingham Tech where we kind of said, these are our this is what we want our purpose to center around, and that was helping people collaborate, inspiring everyone into tech, and making sure that we give people a platform to celebrate their success. And what's been really interesting about that is having that focus has enabled us to say yes more frequently in the right things and no more often, because it just simply doesn't align. And I think then it's taking that and it's aligning it then to the mission of what we're going to do around that. What are the initiatives that actually help us get there? So yeah, some sage advice there. Thank you. And just thank you, to wrap it up, to all of you for taking time out of your busy schedules to deliver such a fascinating and kind of insightful presentation. So much to take away. I think it'll change people's perceptions on purpose, because I know when we included this on the agenda, a few people were like oh right, okay, so again people on the purpose bandwagon. But of course, knowing Chris and knowing the work he was doing with you, Sarah, and you, Alberto, I knew that this would really change the narrative. So really pleased that we've had this as part of Birmingham Tech Week. So thank you.
Thank you, Yanis. And thank you everybody for coming along.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thanks.